Okay, everyone, now it's time to go take a drive of this all-new 2026 Nissan Sentra. Let's shut up our door. We're joined here today with Chris from Topher Drives.
Hello.
We're joining us on our drive here today in the wonderful deserts of Arizona.
It's hot.
It is incredibly hot here today.
Ready for the air conditioning.
Yes. Let's start up the vehicle here. Fun little welcome chime. I'm excited to go take this car on a drive. Let's have a quick little tour of what we got here. So if you haven't watched our full tour and review, we have a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine under the hood. Around 149 horsepower, 146 pound-feet of torque. We have our latest generation of Nissan and Jatco's CVT transmission here. Good traditional shifter, which is wonderful to see still. We also are getting a little bit of an updated steering rack, which we'll have a test out on this drive today. And again, if you haven't seen that tour and review, lots of physical buttons in here. Otherwise, it's a pretty spacious interior. We have a small little moonroof up here as well. And as we've seen on other Nissan and even Infiniti products, a pretty configurable digital cluster here that has quite a lot of different stuff to kind of play around with, which I really appreciate in this vehicle. So we'll start off with our normal circular gauges here in our meter view here. And we're going to head off on this drive. So quick look at reverse. We have our reversing cameras here. You can also access these cameras in pretty much any setting here, so you can kind of cycle through all of our new camera systems. I like on this upgraded package, we are getting a front view camera system, some side view wheel views as well, so you're not going to curb your new Sentra wheels. And we have our nice big panoramic front view there that we kind of saw on the new QX60 we just checked out, which is pretty cool to see that that's kind of making its way throughout the whole brand lineup. Let's head off and drive. We'll start off in our standard modes here. We have a few different drive modes that Nissan has really been proud that they kind of tuned these to the American market, and they tuned it in the United States on what they said is pretty similar roads that we're going to be driving out here today. Automatic locking doors, which is a nice touch, and we head off. And off the bat, as you can see this gorgeous lake here in the desert, we have lots of visibility in the Sentra. So these A-pillars are pretty much in a good position here, that they're not really blocking a lot of my blind spot views on the side. Pretty good views out of our side view mirrors here. Brakes coming on a downhill to a stop are quite smooth, nothing too grabby, nothing to complain about. Okay, let's head out here in front of this Rivian Amazon truck. Oh gosh.
Into an active construction zone.
Straight into an active construction zone. So we'll pop it into sport mode here, and Nissan has said that this sport mode actually is making changes to the throttle mapping as well as the CVT and our steering here, which is a nice touch. Quick acceleration for y'all. Okay, almost 60 there, but you definitely still have to put your foot into it to get up to speed. We're only dealing with around 149 horsepower, and at some elevation here, this naturally aspirated engine is going to have to work a little bit harder without any sort of turbocharging. But as I'm just playing with the throttle here in the sport mode, it is actually quite responsive. So yes, there is indeed some sort of change we're noticing between these drive modes. It's not just some superficial, I'm in sport mode, but I actually quite like that. It feels a lot more responsive. And once you get into the power band, this CVT, I would say, keeps it up to speed quite well. It's something I like to see on the highway with these lower powered kind of entry-level vehicles. Sometimes the highway passing, getting up to speed, which we'll test out in a little bit, can be a little bit of a hassle, but so far so good here. Steering is pretty communicative on this front end. I feel a little bit of some extra stiffness here. There's a little bit of play in the steering rack, but Nissan did kind of point out that we have a little bit more of some isolation throughout this, so you're not going to get as much unnecessary vibrations through the steering, but you still have a good amount of feel, which is nice. Popping it right back into standard mode. Again, revs drop just a little bit. This is a newer feature, which is really going to be focused more on the eco mode with this updated CVT. And honestly, it feels pretty smooth. And you know, you just drove this Sentra up this mountain. What do you think about like the CVT? Do you feel like it's a little bit more on the smoother end, or?
I think it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a CVT at the end of the day.
I feel like Nissan at this point, like Nissan should be like the leader in CVTs because they've been making them for so long. And I think this latest iteration is fine. I mean, I obviously would prefer like an 8-speed automatic or something in this car, but I don't know. I think with like the 149 horsepower, like it's fine. It's just, it does what it needs to do.
Agreed. And at the end of the day, I think this may come into a little bit more of a play in some more city traffic driving. The CVT, especially with this newer kind of retuned auto stop start system they got going on here. So hopefully we'll see some nice, a little bit of a bump in fuel economy numbers once those are official. But we got around 30 mpg coming up this trip here. But wasn't over the longest distance, but still pretty good numbers just on some casual highway driving. Changing our meter view here, you can see on our digital cluster, it really stretches it out. And I like how it's not just a generic vehicle, we still have a Sentra in there. You can tell by the wheels, which is pretty fun. You can kind of really customize this to whatever you would like. In the standard mode though, you're definitely going to notice that the throttle isn't as responsive, but this vehicle does feel pretty well controlled on the road, this 2026 Sentra. They made some enhancements to the suspension as well as the underbody. It's around 6% more rigid, which you're really not going to notice on a day-to-day basis, but overall as a complete package, it still feels pretty agile. They have a multi-link rear suspension on this one as well still, which is nice to see. So going around corners, just day-to-day driving maneuverability, it feels pretty sharp and nimble, which is nice. Pop it into sport mode here before we do our quick test of our Pro Pilot system. This is foot to the floor, guys. And we're at 60 right there. So if you have a little bit of a larger on-ramp, you'll be more confident in getting up to speed. But where I'm from, where you guys are used to me driving, we have really short on-ramps, so I honestly may need to time out getting onto the highway sometimes just a little bit. But responsiveness on the highway, again, with this sport mode throttle tuning is actually really quick. I actually do appreciate that quite a lot. But I'm gonna throw it right into eco mode here. You can see our revs should drop just a little bit down there, and it'll be a little bit more of an efficient tuning here for our continuously variable transmission as well as this engine. And I want to pop it right into the Pro Pilot Assist system, and I love how Nissan really does a clear indication of when you're in the system and not in the system. I like the little clear blue indicator there as well, so you literally just tap it on and set your speed and you are good to go. And this one also has steering, centering, and lane keep assist, so you may not be able to take your hands off the steering wheel for too long, but it does a really great job of keeping you centered in the lane, and it feels pretty confident, even taking this corner just a little bit. Well, a little small curve, not a full corner, but it feels pretty confident in those actions. And as you can see, if you keep my hands off the wheel just a little bit, it's going to start beeping at me. We get that really familiar red icon there over there. It'll start beeping if you don't have your hands on the wheel in just a little bit of time. But we don't have any sort of full hands-off system, which is totally normal for this class of vehicle. But even having this with this really confident steering assistant, I think this is a really, really useful feature, especially on a highway run. Adjusting our speed is pretty easy as well. I believe if you hold it up, you get increments of 5. It's very unlike the EX30 we just had, which did it in reverse. And then we have our distance adjustment here, as it is a full radar adaptive cruise control system here. So it looks like we have 3 levels of driver assistance distance there, which is nice. It's not baked into the infotainment system, which I'm not really a big fan of there. And again, nice easy physical buttons to control that there, and it's giving me another warning, which is nice. Another great feature is if you are making a lane change, it deactivates our lane keep assist system. You do got to hold that, it looks like. Let's go back. Yeah, that deactivates that, so you're not fighting the lane keep assist or intervention. If you do need to make any sort of speed adjustment there, you just kind of get on and it pops right back into the system to your set speed, which is a cool touch. And I like how all the gauges and everything turns blue. You have clear indications that you are in this system. Though, Chris, as you mentioned, when you get out of this, it stays on the screen and kind of loses out what you were on. So if you had your music up here and you turn on your adaptive cruise control, you're gonna have to go back to that screen. And I've seen this on a few other Nissan products as well, do the same thing, which is a little frustrating.
Yeah, I think they all do it.
Yeah. And I am a little bit of a fan of having some navigation, some sort of navigation system up in our digital cluster. And I know for a fact that this pretty much same screen and software can put Waze, Apple Maps and stuff up here. But this one does not seem to be able to do that. How do you feel about like those maps up here? Are you a fan of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like having it so I can have my music over here.
Agreed.
And have over there, or vice versa, whatever.
Definitely.
But, I mean, I always like to see more choices for more things. So like
exactly.
if I can have, you know, if I can configure things, the more ways the better.
Exactly.
I think is always good.
Yeah.
I mean, in a car like this, for like starting at 25,000, I don't think it's the end of the world. But if it can do it, why not just program it?
Yeah, agreed. And that's the other big point, I think, of this vehicle, is that the pricing of this is all pretty much underneath, starting at least $30,000. Really good packaging, I would say, Nissan's doing on these new trims as well. This SR grade comes standard with quite a lot of features, though. We have some upgrades on here, which adds a little bit of some heft to the price, but the audio system is pretty impressive from Bose. 8 speakers with that 10-inch subwoofer, as we saw on the trunk on this particular trim. Quite good, actually. And we are on a pretty smooth bit of pavement here, but in a little bit, we'll kind of hear a little bit more road noise coming in from both these tires and underneath the vehicle, even though Nissan has said they've done quite a bit of improvements to that NVH, so a little bit more sound deadening underneath the vehicle. They also made some aerodynamic improvements, so a little bit more flat floorness underneath the vehicle to help it be a little bit more slippery than before. But again, hopefully when we see some official EPA numbers, it might be improved. But still, even on this, we're getting around 30-ish mpg, just kind of cruising around in eco mode on the highway at highway speeds to be.
I think the raised NVH is just because they cheaped out on the tires and put a Hankook on it. Honestly, I think this car is capable of being a lot quieter.
Yeah, I totally agree. And even on that rough patch that we were on before, I think most of that road noise we heard was coming from those front tires. And again, space in here is really impressive. I can stretch out. This is my comfortable driving position, and as y'all saw before, I can sit behind myself with quite a lot of leg room still. And as a passenger, how do you feel over there?
It's great. You know, I always get worried when a car doesn't have like a height adjust for the passenger seat, but this is okay. I don't know if you've mentioned already, but we've got 4 zero gravity seats in this.
Yes.
So, you know, Nissan's kind of known for these zero gravity seats. They're quite comfortable.
They are quite
comfortable. Even with minimal adjustment over here, I'm doing okay. I've got plenty of leg room here. The console doesn't stick up super high. It's good. Yeah, it's like what's 44 inches of front leg room.
Yeah.
I don't know how they calculate that.
Yeah, that is true, but it is pretty spacious. I got a lot of lateral room. My legs don't feel too cramped up front as well, and I like how they have a little bit of padding for like your knee over on the side. Which is quite nice. I always hate when I get in a car and I'm banging my knee on a solid piece of plastic. But that's a nice little extra premium touch there to make your daily commute a little more comfortable. Getting up to speed there in eco mode. Okay, so if you're not full on the throttle, those shifts kind of happen a little bit lower down. They are pretty smooth overall for these simulated gear shifts. I don't know if it's a full 8-speed of simulation. I don't think we're going to be able to run through them all, as we don't have any sort of paddle shifters or manual shifting mode whatsoever in this new Sentra. But again, it's a CVT. I think that's totally fine. So everyone, we did get a test to see what this all-new Sentra is like out on the highway. Now let's go take a quick look at how it is on, I think, more familiar roads that we're going to even see what this car is going to do really good at is daily driving around the town. So we'll pop it into eco mode. I think will be an interesting mode to test out here, because we're going to get a little bit more of a softer throttle response around town scenario. Now I did mention on the highway that we were on, at least the portions that we filmed, was a little bit more on the smoother end, but we have a little bit more of some bumps in the road, so we'll kind of test out how the suspension is in terms of comfort. We just stopped for some coffee, so we can see how a normal sized cup does fit in these squarish cup holders instead of having squarish looking cup holders instead of having our boxed water in there, but that fits perfectly well. Yeah. Nothing's rolling around, which is nice. Oh my, what is that?
What is that, for real?
It looks like it's from Mexico.
It's Ram.
Yeah.
It's from Mexico.
Okay, that's cool. So going over some manhole covers over here, a little bit of some bumps make it in, but I still think the damping's pretty good on this vehicle. These zero gravity seats, and I mentioned this in the Infiniti QX60 we just had, they actually do a lot of damping, I think, almost for us, in addition to the vehicle's damping, because where my footwell is, I feel a little bit more vibrations than my actual butt. So that's a cool thing. So you get a little bit more of some comfort out of these seats, and they are supremely comfortable. We've been driving around for hours around today, and I honestly don't feel any fatigue. So in that aspect, credit to Nissan. I think they do work quite well. Day-to-day driving scenarios, like I mentioned, is pretty nice. I would have wondered if they could have added in some sort of turn signal cameras. We don't have that. I think visibility is pretty good in the car, but with the 360 camera system, I think that would have been a cool thing that could potentially consider activating. Exactly, yeah. I have the hardware there, like we mentioned earlier on our highway drive with these screens in terms of just throwing the navigation up there. It could be done, but some compromises are made on these lower entry priced vehicles. Accessing a lot of our controls is pretty simple as well. Like we mentioned in the full touring review, we have all these physical fixed button areas for our climate control system. It is haptic, so touching them, you may want to have to look a little bit to kind of see where you're going. If you want to have it in your line of sight, you can go into the menu in the screen there, but it is still pretty nice to have these dedicated area for these climate controls here. And even in eco mode around town, it's really comfortable and smooth. I mean, like I mentioned, these seats are really soft, and overall, and when you're not at higher speeds, it is generally quite even more quiet in here as well, which is nice. Coming to a stop here, we'll get a quick taste of our auto stop start system. And the engine's off. Again, really, really smooth, and popping it back on, it's so quick and so smooth. There's really no really obtrusive types of vibrations that are going to be shaking the cabin or shaking you as a driver. So that's really nice as well, especially in day-to-day driving. And I think we did notice on earlier of our drives, if you do want to use these cameras, you do have to be below around 5 miles per hour. Some vehicles these days, particularly an SUV or some of these off-roaders, they even let you drive around with cameras on these days, which may not be the safest thing on the planet, but I guess if you're on an off-road scenario for those types of cars, it makes a little bit of sense.
I love it for high-speed off-roading.
Oh yeah, you just see the dirt being kicked up around you.
Most people are not high-speed off-roading. Nissan Sentra.
Not in a Nissan Sentra. Maybe in the kicks.
Yeah.
Really smooth shifts, again, even in day-to-day driving with the CVT. But overall, this new Sentra, I would say, is a really good daily commuter car. You have an insane amount of standard features now, and yeah, you don't have to go fully loaded like almost this particular SR trim is, a little over $30,000 with options. You can still get a really great value out of the SV trim, which is coming in around $25,000 or just under $25,000, and have a really wonderful, efficient, feature-packed sedan that also has a crazy amount of cargo space in the trunk. So if you don't want to go for a kicks, you don't need the kicks, this is a pretty good option now in the Nissan lineup and throughout this entry-level sedan lineup. And Nissan's even saying it's growing a little bit more, this segment, which is cool to see. I think people are realizing they don't need colossal SUVs everywhere they go, and can kind of downsize as well. But I think this is a really great, refreshing option. I'm glad Nissan is kind of bringing up the Sentra into the 21st century with all this new technology, and as we've seen in other Nissan products, it works well. It's really intuitive, pretty easy to use, and they haven't made this vehicle overly complicated whatsoever. So any final thoughts?
I like that it's not Tesla-fied.
I would agree.
I like my buttons and knobs and things, and yeah, I think it's impressive that they've been able to capture this level of quality for $25,000.
Agreed.
I mean, this one as spec is like 32 grand, but I think even without the option packages in this, it would still feel just as high quality.
Yeah, and I like how these option packages aren't making any sort of like major mechanical changes. It's a lot of just features that you don't need, but it could be nice to have if you do want it, and it is available as well. So good job, Nissan. Good first driving impressions. As again, this is a prototype. I do have to call that out. So we've had a little bit of some quality issues up there. It has not fallen off for me.
4 times for me.
Had a little bit more luck, but other than that, it's actually been quite issue-ish free, which is nice to see. No rattles. It's pretty solid built interior. The materials are really well sorted out, even on a prototype. So that's good to see. So this will be hitting the markets later this year, so before 2026, which is nice to see. So definitely keep an eye out for those. And pricing wise, as I mentioned, is starting around 22 grand before destination. And as always, guys, thank you for joining us over here on Allcarnews. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow for more. And definitely, of course, thank you, Chris, for joining us on this drive as well.
Yes.